Chef, I have to ask you this question. Many years ago, the British people sent convicts to Australia, and actually the Indian government sent culinary experts to Australia. So you've become a chef. You started working in Taj and everywhere. Tell us how you ended up going to Australia.
Well, I had done my stint of work at the war-torn country of Iraq, and I had come back to India, and I was looking for a change. And I saw an ad in the paper by the government of India. They were operating a couple of restaurants in London and Sydney, and they said, want a chef for Australia. And there I was given the opportunity to work in Australia with a permit to live forever in Australia, and the Indian government sent me to promote Indian food in Australia.
That's pretty amazing. So Indian government said, they sent chefs to London as well as Sydney to promote Indian cuisine. And did they set up their own restaurants, or how did they send it?
No, that was a joint venture by the Tea Board of India and Air India. So there was only tea centers in those days. They were only promoting tea. They thought that why not promote Indian food along with tea? And hence the inception of Indian food restaurants. Okay. And I was sent as a chef for the restaurant.
So after a while the restaurant shut down, but you decided to live in Australia, start your own restaurant, became a very famous chef, and you wrote a book. And actually, your cookbook is very, very different than many other cookbooks. So tell us, it says, from India, food, family, and tradition. So in what way did you change the way cookbooks are written?
Okay, as the book title says, from India, food, family, and tradition. Those are the main three things which I concentrated on. And unlike other cookbooks where they're just recipes given as starters, mains, desserts, or poultry, something like that, this was based on the five senses of taste, which is salt, bitter, sour, spice, and sweet. And there is a reason why we did this, also because of the ways of walks of our life which has gone into that.
Yeah. So, but tell us, what did salt represent for you? Each of them represented a different part of your life, of a family for you. So let's start with salt.
Salt is the prime ingredient of the food. As we say, there's no salt in any food, it's rubbish. In Tamil, we have a saying called Uppilla Pandam Uppaile. Means there's no salt, that is to be in rubbish. Now, so salt that's the prime ingredient, but that's literally. But in my life, my grandma was my salt. So she was an excellent cook, and my mother is an excellent cook to learn from her. So I was quite interested in learning and seeing those things. So that was the influence. I kept importance of my grandma on the chapter, and hence started that chapter.
So the next one you said was bitter. So tell us about your bitter and the next one. What was that all about? Both bitter and spice. Tell me a little bit about them.
Okay. So the bitterness is the Tam Bram boy coming into the hospitality industry and being exposed to meat, and I've never seen a piece of flesh in our house, or even eggs for that matter. Coming into the catering college in the 70s was unheard of. It's a definite no.
Yeah.
And that was the bitter part.
Yeah.
And you wanted
the sour part?
The sour part was my souring journey to the troubled tones of Iraq, and I was a boy who those days couldn't speak Hindi, going to Bombay and trying a new language and learning things, so that it was quite different, and still moving on my journey to war-torn Iraq in 80s.
Yeah. And now we come to the interesting part of spice. Where does spice come from?
The spice girl, my wife. So she's the spice of my life. So going to Australia, she came in, we got married, and the spice of life kicked in.
Yeah.
That's when the spice of life kicked in.
And the final sweet?
The sweet's inception of the birth of our children, Abhinav and Akhilesh, the two sons, and the birth of the businesses. So once my first son was born, I had my first restaurant, which has been operating for 27 years now in Sydney.
And it's the #1 restaurant in Sydney, right?
Yes, thank God for His mercy. Yes, it is, yes.
Yeah. So one last question to you is that you're here. Actually, no, two more questions. You were probably the only Indian chef on MasterChef. MasterChef Australia has become like a rage. I mean, it's turned so many Indian boys into chefs. I think your dream is fulfilled now. So my 12-year-old and his friends talk about the food is good, but the plating is not quite right, which makes us mothers want to slap them around and say, do your own plating, So, you're one of the few chefs on there. What was your experience like? Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, I was in the first, in the first session, I've been in the MasterChef Australia quite a few times. And the first session was in 2010, in the series 2. I did a master class and showed them a humble prawn and okra curry with tamarind. I mean, it is nothing but a fish curry or a prawn curry with tamarind and okra, but then I upscaled it and gave it a different version of it and put it to the people, and that became very appealing.
Yeah, and did you have a session where you had them all cook Indian food as well?
The first session, the first appearance was the master class. That's where I did the prawn and okra curry.
Right.
And the second session was the contestants had to cook for 500 Indian guests for a live wedding, and it was not staged up or something. So, like if you're watching Master Chefs, there's usually a red team and a blue team, and they fight each other in their place.
Yeah.
So in this occasion, those teams were competing to cook for a real Indian wedding.
Yeah.
Sit down dinner for about 500 people. So I was.
It's a very small wedding as far as Indian weddings go.
Yes, but it's a huge thing in Australia.
Of course, I'm just kidding.
And so I was their mentor, and I was to judge who would be the winner, which team would be the winner, or something like that. That was quite interesting. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.